that I ever pick your brain. I stole your training
He
log.
stole my diary, actually.
In Embrun, France, we raced in Gap. I did very poorly. You did quite well.
Yeah, 96.
And Greg said the next morning he was so focused and on the ball. He slipped off for the run the next morning, and he said, "Are you going to come? You coming to running?" I said, I'd seen his training log on the cabinet beside us. I said, no, I'm not going to go today. And I frantically wrote down all the training he was doing. So
He's a little shit.
It's fair. I got it. It's true. I learned so much from Bennett, like I said in the beginning there.
All right, enough.
You were like
it's very nice of you.
My question would be, again, after I've asked you 1,000 questions over the years, but since now we're all retired from professional racing, I would love to know now, 25 years of professional racing later, is that right? What are your, it's a broad question, but you get to start. What are your thoughts on optimal performance?
Yeah, and that's a broad question, optimal performance, or I like to even put it as a pursuit of excellence. It's funny, I just had a meeting with, I don't know if you remember, old school people, Miles Stewart, who won the 91 World Championships and was one of the great Australian triathletes in the 90s in particular. Went to the 2000 Olympic Games, was 5th to you, I think. Is now the CEO of Triathlon Australia. So I went down and I had coffee with him a few weeks back. And I sat there and I said, Miles, what most impressed me about you was his ability to win. He won world champs at 18. If you think about an 18-year-old winning the Olympics now or the world championships, you can't even fathom it. This guy was a genius at winning. And then I looked at myself and I said, what I had to learn was how to win. I won the occasional small race every now and then, but I basically went maybe winning one race a year for 15 years. And then around 2006, even after I'd won the World Series in 2001 and 2, but that was more from getting a lot of podiums than actually winning a lot of races, I started to figure out what it took to win. And that's what I went on a string of winning something like 40 races out of 60 starts from 07 to 2011. And what I figured out was that I had to be more professional than any other athlete in the world because I wasn't, in my mind, as talented as everybody else out there. So what were the controllable things that I could do? Laura and I worked as a team. She's my counterpart in every way and runs the business and everything behind Bennett Endurance, as we've titled ourselves, that allowed us to focus on every minute detail. From getting to the point in 07, we had a live-in cook, a live-in massage therapist. We put 40% of our income went to these things to make sure we would try and do every little thing. So we didn't do grocery shopping. We would come home, we would get a half-hour massage every afternoon. Dinner would be cooked and ready that evening, and we'd go about this process. And as it turns out, 07, Laura wins high V, I win the 5 from 5, we have our $1 million prize money year, and we were the first athletes to go, wow, they did it, how do you do it? I'm like, well, we did more things better than any other athlete. And I've been interviewed in the past and they say, oh, Greg, you must train so hard. I'm like, well, training hard when you're passionate is really easy. I love going out there and running and biking and swimming every day, but it's doing the little things. I mean, I don't know if you've all used the Trigger Point technology stuff. I don't know if the team's sponsored by them or whatever, but we knew them from the day they launched it. I remember being in Victoria, Canada. Cassidy Phillips, who started Trigger Point, was in Canada. And I said, all right, every morning for 15 years, we did the rollers and the rollers and the rollers, and we made sure that our quads were looser, that our glutes were looser. And I'll never forget, in 07, so this 5 from 5 race series that I had to do, the Lifetime Fitness Series, you had to win 5 races. My big menace with Craig Walton. He was this guy that could swim and bike that like we've never seen before. I'm rooming with him in LA, and with Emma Snowsill, who he was dating at the time. And I'll never hear, he tells his story that he just hears this at like 5 or 3 in the morning as I'm getting ready to race him to try and keep this $500,000 prize money alive. And it was those little things, and that was important to me to know that my legs were going to be more ready than his. And I took that to every race going, and it pissed him off to the point that he retired at the end of that year. Then I go to the final race of that 07, which I was so nervous about. So there's 500 grand on the line. Basically, I've won the series, so I win 60 grand, which is great. But no athlete in triathlon ever gets to win a tennis type amount of money. And I'm not bragging about the money, I'm bragging about the process of what it took me to do it. And I'd been injured beforehand. I'd flown over to Beijing to watch Laura qualify for the Olympics. She'd missed 04 Olympics, and we were determined to both be able to finish our careers and say, we went to the Olympics. It was important to us, just to tick a box. So I'd gone over there, come back, actually got injured coming back, dehydration, whatever the reason was. And I flew down to Florida to see my chiropractor, Alex Keith, who was on the USA Triathlon team for many years. And he took me to the shooting range, and we did all sorts of things just to help me relax about the fact that I couldn't run. And here comes the biggest race of my career. So I fly Alex out to Dallas. He organizes another chiropractor. At 1:30, they knock on the door. I don't bother about sleeping much that night, and they start working on my body at 2 a.m. in the morning. And from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., we work on my body and just getting it loose and ready. I hop on the school bus with everybody else. I wanted to just be as normal as I could, and hop on the bus, and Bevan Doherty and Ben Sanson and all the boys are on the bus, and there's kind of all this whispering in the background. I stood up and said, right, if any of you are with me with 200 meters to go, we will discuss how this prize money could break down. I said, finally.
It's truly an American
As it turns out, I was able to win that race and break it down into the portions that I needed to do it. And I was talking to someone earlier about the process of what it took me to learn how to win was, rather than just swimming, biking and running and trying to do little things, I started looking at 2 and 3 years down the track of what athlete did I want to be in 2 or 3 years. And remember, you always used to say, preparation, preparation, preparation. So it got to the point, and you did that at Sydney Olympics, and I remember us always running down the same gradient in Victoria, Canada, going, this is what Macquarie Street's going to look like, and Greg, you're the fastest downhill runner in the sport, and this is why it's good that you're here, we can train the downhill running for me. Boom, he wins the Sydney Olympics on the downhill run and the sprint finish. And it was that I took from Simon all those years later, going, okay, I've got to take that kind of mentality to go, wins don't just happen. You want to win, you got to make it happen. You got to do something special in a race. So I started designing races well in front, a year in front, that I would step back from and go, okay, I'm going to win this race at 20k on the bike. I'm going to lay down 450 watts for 5k. Then I'm going to plan to run off the bike and drop a 245k bomb as hard as I can, knowing that I can't hold that, but I go as hard as I can. And then I'm going to do another one in the middle of the race. And it didn't always work out. This bastard got me one time where it was like I had everything right. I visualized it. I was going to run down Peter Robinson, Simon Lessing, and then I was going bang, bang, bang. This guy sticks with me like glue and outsprints me, knowing he's got the weapon. So you don't always get it right, but the process is what I learned during that, probably that 05, 06, after Athens Olympics, on how I was going to try and win races. So I've talked enough, and Laura...
That was awesome.
I'll say that when Ben and I first sat down on Monday, we were talking about watching the Rio Olympics together and just what we thought of that race, and I said, oh man, what about Mola? And you said, I'm not sure if...
I'd ridden Mola. I'd ridden Mola before the Olympics.
He didn't know how many steps there were between the start line and the ocean and what the sand felt like, so I was worried for him. Honestly, that's the level of detail that we were talking about in terms of and I had that reaction, so he didn't know what? Yeah. That's the level of attention to detail that I learned from Bennett and Laura when we embraced together, and it became this all-consuming thing. So we would see and script and orchestrate in our mind how is this race going to unfold? That was our experience watching Rio, was watching Alistair Brown, and I was like, oh, it's like he could hand you a piece of paper, like, hey, I wrote that last week, like, this is what's going to happen, and exactly how he scripted it. And that's something you're talking about, like that attention to details. Sorry.
You didn't know. I'm not even sure what to say after that story. That was amazing. I mean, I guess if we're talking about, your best story that you've had in your racing, and I guess the goal that you set. I mean, if I were to pick 3 things in my pursuit of excellence, I would say I would pick a goal that I felt realistic about, and especially that I felt realistic about. I think a lot of times in the environment of the Olympics or Ironman, or even at 70.3, your family gets involved and they get inspired and they're like, oh, you guys should achieve this goal or that goal. And we see a lot of young athletes come into the sport, and sometimes you just ask them, do you even want to go to the Olympics? And they don't even know how to answer that question. They just have been so infiltrated with, that's what you should do and you should strive after that. And I think it's super important to find your own goals, and and have that realisticness of saying, yes, I do believe I can achieve it. Maybe you can't, but if you believe you can achieve it, the process that you'll go through in order to try and achieve it is where all the growth comes from, and the experiences, and yeah, just the love of the camaraderie in the sport that, I mean, to me, life's about experiences. So that's how I kind of have always viewed it, you know, like maybe I'll never be a gold medalist or win 5 for 5, but if I have one race that I've put my mind to and I've achieved it, I'd be super proud of myself. And I think as we step back from all the racing we've done, I think we speak to all the people that we've raced, and everybody's like, oh, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have done that, and a lot of them have achieved so much. And so I think it's really important to have had the vision of, okay, what do I want out of this sport? And for me, it's always been the experiences, but I feel like this maybe is where my talent is, and so I've thought, okay, well, let's try and maximize what you have. And so for me, it's finding that goal that I would like to achieve, and then what's my plan? What plan do you have in order to try and achieve that goal? And then what routine can you set in order to achieve that goal? And after that, if you put those 3 things forward, then everything kind of falls into place, and then you just kind of sit back and ride it out and take on what it is. It's not always the plan you wanted. When, like Greg mentioned, when I had the opportunity to win Hy-Vee in 2007, yes, that definitely was on our plan of goals for the year. But I was injured in March, and I had to take 3 weeks off running, and the race was in June, and that is not opportunistic for trying to have the best race of your career when the world's coming to America and you're trying to achieve a goal that big. And so that was pretty nerve-wracking to have to take on, okay, you need to just relax, you've done a lot of great training, and then you still want to try and achieve it. And so, you know, I just kind of rolled it out, and basically on race day tried to control as many controllables as you can. A lot of times in IT you do not have control because the drafting on the bike makes it who's in your pack, but knowing the players was a big part of that race for me. And so I knew Sarah McClarty would smack the swim, and I knew I could keep up with her if I put my head down, and that was my goal. And she was motivated to try and make a pack getaway. We all are, because if you're racing against 6 at the end or you're racing against 20, you're definitely going to want to have 6. So everybody's motivated to swim as hard as you possibly can. And fortunately she did, and we got a little pack away, but I knew certain players had to not be in that group or be in that group for us to stay away. And that's one of the, you can be as fit as you can be the fittest guy on the race course on the day of an ITU race and still not win because of the dynamics of the racing. And so fortunately we knew one of the girls who usually drove the second pack was in our pack. And I thought, okay, great, we got 2 for 2 down. We had a great swim, and Jessica Harrison, who usually drives the second pack, is in our pack. So our pack of 8 girls is away, and everybody's absolutely motivated to keep team time trialing. And so we got off the bike, and there was maybe one other runner from 2 runners from the second pack that would possibly run up to us, but we had put 3 minutes into them in the bike because of our motivation and goal to stay away. And one of them actually pulled out of the race, and the other wasn't capable of catching. But now we still have to reevaluate and say, okay, well now who's in our pack and who are you going to have to run against? So I've always tried to be very quick on the transitions. It's actually a whole nother event, I think, in the ITU stuff. And so I was very quick. You know, you're always coming into transition going, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to take my helmet off, get my shoes on to one, you know, and you're kind of going through the whole motion. And fortunately this time I got out really quick, and generally I do, but the problem is I go out too quick. My first K is way too fast for my ability, apparently. And so the second K always hurts. And so this time I got out, and it's like a downhill start, which doesn't help the thing I'm trying to hold back. And I got out of transition, and I thought, do not go out fast today. Just relax. I think Kirsten Sweetland was right behind me. I said, just wait for her, and let's just relax and you know, build into the run. And I was so proud of myself on that moment, because I was like, this is really not what you would usually do. And so things like that, where I think I'd worked on it in training, but you know, in the race, you're like, you're so excited and everything's so hyped up. I actually achieved that, and I think that was the difference between winning that race on the day and actually getting third or fourth. And so we basically, you know, then once the race got underway, I kind of outstayed the other girls. It was super windy, and Kirsten was sick. She fell over, and then Annabelle Luxford was my main component on the last lap, and it was an uphill like finish. So you come up, and then it's still kind of up all the way to the finish. But Kirsten had just passed out on that just before we go up, and then Annabelle attacked me on the hill, and I thought, oh my God, is that all you got? Holy crap, I think I just won this race. And so she attacked me, and I just came right over the top of her. I was like, I'm not even gonna give her another chance. I don't even know if she's got more. She was just testing me. And so I came over the top of her and just ran all the way. I don't even remember like once I turned the left in like that last 150 meters. But I think just that having a goal, like setting a goal in January, and then, you know, having the ups and downs in the training and still being clear on what you want, but then having to really re-register constantly is just such an experience and life lesson that you're kind of like, you know what, you can really take on a lot if you just kind of stay focused on what you want, and those experiences are pretty cool. So I think that's probably the greatest one that I've ever had.
Again, it comes down to, isn't it, scripting? And you all know this, you've all been very successful in the sport. It's that scripting, isn't it? You'd seen that scenario. You're describing it with such vivid, you know, your description of it, the way you remember it so vivid because you've seen it so many times before it actually happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's something as I come out of a sporting career and we come out, it's like, wow, those things really work that way. And I appreciate that you know this already, so I hope I say this in a way that's to say, like, reaffirming something that you already know, but that would be across the board. I mean, those attention to detail, and I believe it's such a daily ritual thing. You know, it's like, and I've seen it coming out of sport. I've been out of sport now for 3 years, and it was so structured in my existence for such a long time that I went into this very much kind of an obstinate defiance to it. I was kind of like, wow, this is great. I don't have to be structured anymore. I can do whatever I want right now. And to see the other side of that, and to see really very random and unpredictable outcomes and results has really shown me, like, wow, when you are ritualized about your existence from that moment you get up, and your affirmations about what you're working towards accomplishing, and who you're grateful for, and what you're grateful to yourself for, and what you're for your own experience, that works. And to see, I've seen it on the other side, to go through, like I said, I've been stopped for 4 years, and to see the first 2 years of that, just being obstinate to it, just being like, I can just get up and I'm working, but I don't have to take care of my body in the same way. I don't have to be structured and ritualized about this. And to really see that change, and to be, I would call it, not synchronized with what was going on, because I wasn't able to be in a ritualized existence around it. Does that make sense? So those daily rituals that find the incremental little things that we do every day that we find in our own existence, of like journaling, visualizing, affirmations, and a ritualized existence around the idea of, it's a Tony Robbins idea, but state, story, strategy. If you exist in a lower emotional state, then the stories that you tell yourself will be about your problems, and the strategies that you think up will be about avoiding your problems. If you prime your emotional state, then the story that you tell yourself will be about what solutions to work towards, and the strategies that you deploy will be in the direction of your solutions, not avoiding your problems. I knew that intuitively, but I couldn't have articulated that. And then to see it after I left sport, where I really got into that lowered emotional state, because like I said, I just was like, oh man, I don't have to be structured anymore. This is great. I can kind of just run my day however I wanted to. And to have come back to that, and to be very ritualized around that existence, and acknowledging state, story, strategy has led to being an optimization of my daily performance outside of sport now. LV, we had a wonderful conversation last night from Weave here. I mean, LV has done some pretty remarkable things for what he's accomplished with not only Weave Company, but what he's been involved in before. And I knew it before I asked. I said, wait a minute, I bet you have very structured daily rituals, don't you? And LV has a very structured daily existence around the rituals that he performs first thing in the morning when he gets up, and how he executes his day. and he's performing at an absolutely astounding level. It's one of the reasons I'm very proud to be working with and have invested in Weave, is because of people like LV who are into optimum performance because he understands daily rituals. And understanding daily rituals is looking at the finite details of how we prepare for something. And I hope, I think we have 30 minutes, I think we're probably there. That would be what you would take from here is Greg and Laura, I learned that from these two, was this attention to details and that precision training, precision execution. You all know this. I understand you've all been very successful in the sport and accomplished a great thing. I hope this is just an opportunity to just reaffirm that. And if you've ever got away from that, that's what I'll say, that state story strategy. And like I said, I've really seen it from my own existence in the last 3 years, where when I haven't done that, I have seen the consequences of that. And when I do that, I can really see the great things that come of that. So what a pleasure to be able to come in and talk, and then to share stories with such old friends, and then to see, like I said, to see you guys work together in this team camaraderie sense, and to meet a couple of you. Yeah, it's really special, and you're the best of our sports. So I
think we have time for 2 questions.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. 2 questions. Who has a question?
Yes, Laura and I, since we stopped racing last year, always sit down and go, we don't want to leave the sport. We want to be a part of it because of the people and the energy of the sport. And you guys all know it. You all feel that there's something very unique and special that goes on here. And I just wanted to add to Simon's bit, as much as it talks about routine and discipline and blah, 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 a part of our routine and discipline is that we also add in that we let our hair down and be idiots and have fun. That's a part of that whole process. So it's not about being boring, and although there was this whole thing in Boulder that don't call the Bennetts after 8 because they go to bed so early. and that is still true. But no, like Leon said, I think you focus on, and Laura mentioned, you control the controllables. And I think I remember being in Nice Triathlon with you on the start line, and I think I was ranked pretty high on the world, and you were too, and we were just being idiots. And I actually enjoyed being the idiot on the start line, whether it's with Greg Walsh or yourself or whoever, because I always felt there was a little bit of power in that, because now they're looking at me. They're so nervous, and all their energy's coming to me, going, well, why is he laughing and so relaxed? My butterflies were killing me, are you kidding? But it was this persona that if I can laugh and have a good time, oh shit, he's got it all under control. I'm freaking out.
We went to Budapest in, this is way long. This is back in the day, and the start line was a rolling start back in the river, in the Chichaveres River. And Benno's having such a great time, but he's like, everybody move back. And he's drifting with 2 others. I remember you holding on to a young Aussie going, just stay here. And I could see you, and I was like, wait a minute, he's staying on the start line, and he's somehow got us all to, he's like, Max, just move back. Just move back. And I was like, wait a minute, sure enough, the gun went off, and you guys were already on the start line. Drifting ourselves back, and I was like, oh, I just got played. I watched it happen.
I know, well, I did get in trouble with that a few times. Hold. The race starts well before the gun goes off, and the partner in crime, love him or hate him, Macca was much the same kind of personality on the start line, which was like, let's get the energy towards me, everybody, and everyone get back behind the line, come on. And then it's that kind of, it's a bit of a, I mean, it's within the
One more question. That's like one of my moments was meeting Dave Scott and Mark Allen, and I grew up loving triathlon, and I grew up loving Ironman triathlon. I wish I could just go back and start from the beginning and do an Ironman career. I love that I did short course and gave my whole self to it, and I have that like, oh man, Ironman would have been fun. I'll do an Ironman one day, but I told these guys it'd be a triathlon together, so I'm gonna meet my mates.
I asked him the same question.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do it where we just like the gun goes off, and then my buddies and I all kind of wait, and then we go swim together and hang out and transition together, and then if someone gets a drafting penalty, we eat our peanut butter sandwiches together, and do whatever. I'll do it because I love the sport, and I certainly have that piece. Like I have often wondered how I would have done, but I don't think I was suited to it. I came from soccer and hockey. I came from like hand-eye coordination sports that were very burst sports. I think I wasn't suited.
A quick miler too. I mean, you got to remember, we 93, 94, 95, 96, 4 or 5 years there. It was myself, Simon and Craig Alexander were in Beaumont Tri Club together, and we were the 3 guys that we trained together. And Simon got success pretty dramatic for him. He hadn't won a World Cup before, And suddenly he's this 25-year-old pimple-faced kid getting an Olympic gold medal. Prime Minister of Canada, hey, you want to have lunch? He's like, what? Crowe and I like, what the hell? Crowe hadn't still had much success then, you know, and he basically became more the Ironman side. I kind of stuck to the non-drafting Olympic. And we all kind of went our little ways. And, you know, Simon's still one of the fastest milers I've ever seen in the sport. We'd still give Alistair Brownlee and some of these guys a real good run for his money. And I'll never forget sorry to go on a little bit, but before 2000 Olympics, I was training with Simon. I'd been left off the Australian team. I was kind of pissed at Australia. And he said, why don't you come to Canada and help me train? It'd be kind of fun. I'm like, all right, I'm not doing anything else. So I went to Canada. I'd been beating up on Simon for months on these running trails. I'm like, oh, I'm this kid, it's all right, it's all good. Then 2 weeks before the game, suddenly he's running with me on the first lap of this run, and then the second lap he goes. I'm like, my ego is crushed. I'm like, what? Next morning we get up and we go to the track just to do 4 400s on the track. And I knew he was quick. I always knew if I was to beat Simon, I had to get rid of him by 5K. And we did 200 float and then 200 kick. And he would kick and just leave me for dead. And we had another, I don't know if it was an Olympic Canadian track runner, but a very good track runner with us. Two 400s left, and Simon says to our coach Lance at the time, he says, look, do you mind if I just let him go for 2 laps? Just, you know, see what I can do. I'm like, oh. So we both hop on the start line, boom, they put a watch on. Boom, Simon runs a 54-second quarter. That's really quick. You know, I'm struggling to break 60 seconds, you know. And he goes, all right, another one, boom. And I think he ran like a 52 high. And I watched the Olympic Games, and I'm not going to lie, I was the reserve for the Australian team. And I'm in the stadium, tears are boiling down as I'm watching Simon coming down Macquarie Street. Because there's nothing better than your mate. I mean, you can have country pride, but your mate. And I've got this tiny little Canadian flag. I've got a photo. This tiny little Canadian flag. Don't get me wrong, I love my guy, I love Australia. But for this moment, and they hit the bottom of Macquarie Street, and it was you versus, what's the German fellow, Vukovic. And I was like, there's no way in hell an athlete is out sprinting this guy. And then you just whack. And that was still a very emotional moment for me. It's almost like, if it wasn't going to be me winning the Olympic Games or being in the Olympics, to have your best mate win the first Olympic gold medal, that was pretty cool. And he came over off the stadium. This is really cool. He gets the medal around him, breaks all protocol, runs over to the grandstand where I'm sitting and puts the medal around my neck and said, this is yours. And I was like,